Happy day. I'm Dr. Paula Newsome.
And I'm registered nurse Tracy Young.
And together we're the educational faculty for Knockout Diabetes, where K stands for knowledge, N stands for nutrition, O stands for ocular health, and C stands for coaching.
So right now I'm going to walk you through some deep breath exercises. And this is very important to take some deep cleansing breaths throughout the day. You may be stressed out, you may have a challenging situation, and you just need to calm down for a moment. And so this is something that you can do anytime throughout the day.
Did you know that you can control your blood pressure by breathing? Did you know that you can de-stress by breathing? You know that you can actually not necessarily engage a lot of endorphins, but you can even change your mood by breathing. That breath is so very powerful. So this is probably one of the most important exercises that we can share with you.
Absolutely. So as we walk through these deep breathing exercises, I want to make sure that you're in a quiet and calm environment. Have a chair that has some back support, maybe arm support if you need it. Your feet should be placed flat on the floor with your legs uncrossed. And also, if you want to relax back in your chair to have your back supported, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes throughout this segment to get yourself ready for the deep breathing exercises. You're going to hear me say inhale and exhale and kind of give you a guide as to how long to hold your breaths and exhale. But I do want you to keep in mind to still do what is within your comfort level, especially if this is your first time going through deep breathing exercises. I want to make sure that you're also breathing in through your nose and exhaling out through your mouth. And as we go through the exercises, I'll make sure to guide you. So let's go ahead and get started. So close your eyes, and here we go. Take a deep breath in, 2, 3, 4, and exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, and exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale, make sure you're inhaling through your nose, and exhale, blowing out that cleansing breath through your mouth. And inhale again, and exhale. Inhale, and exhale. Inhale through your nose, and exhale through your mouth. Inhale and exhale. Make sure you keep your feet flat on the floor. Inhale. And last one, exhale. Wonderful. How do you feel?
Excellent.
Right?
Excellent.
It's such a great exercise that you can practice at any time to kind of help yourself be calm and come down from any kind of stressful day or an event that you're having, or just to kind of clear your mind of any negative thoughts you may be having.
I actually even inhale and exhale even slower. I even just kind of relish that breath. So I even do it at a slower count.
Absolutely.
Because my day is so hectic that I don't want that same speed. I want to
slow
really,
it down.
Yes.
Absolutely. So you can do these exercises at your own pace. It is important to have your exhale be a little bit longer than your inhale to really blow out any of that negative energy or any of that old air that's kind of circulating through your lungs. So thank you so much for watching these breathing exercises.
We want you to be well,
stay healthy,
and stay the course as we knock out diabetes.
Happy day and welcome to our program, Knockout Diabetes. I am registered nurse Tracy Young, and I'm here today to walk you through our weekly exercise regimen and introduce you to our Knockout Diabetes community. One of our program goals is to increase your activity to 150 minutes per week. That breaks down to about 30 minutes a day, and you can get that 30 minutes in each day by breaking that down in 10-minute increments after each meal. By exercising after each meal, that will give you really good effects on helping to lower that blood glucose throughout the day. I do want to give you a couple of reminders before we get started. Make sure that before you start any exercise program, you do consult with your healthcare provider. You want to make sure that you adjust your medication appropriately, as exercising does bring down your blood glucose numbers. You may have any snacks that are needed to combat any hypoglycemia or low blood sugar. You want to make sure that you have a bottle of water or something next to you so that way you can stay hydrated. Some symptoms of hypoglycemia can include shakiness, feeling dizzy, blurred vision, or being excessively thirsty. So please be mindful and pay attention to your body and your body's cues as we go through the video. You can pause this at any time and make sure that you work at your own pace. Let's go ahead and get started. So first we're going to start with our warm-up. It's very important to do a warm-up. That way you can get your body ready for the exercise that we're getting ready to do. And warm-up is going to include exercises that are very low intensity just to get your muscles and your body ready for movement. Our first warm-up exercise is going to be the shoulder squeeze. We're going to squeeze our shoulders to the back and we're going to do 10 reps. Let's get started. Very good. Our next exercise will be exercising our neck. And we used to do the neck roll, but now we're going to take one ear and touch it to the shoulder and do that on the opposite side as well. And then take our chin and put it to our chest and then also move our head to the back. So we'll go ahead and demonstrate that. Let's get started. Again. Again. One more. Excellent. The next warm-up exercise we'll do is arm circles. You're going to have your arms right out to the side of you. We're going to circle 25 seconds in one direction and then 25 seconds in the opposite direction. Let's get started. Forward. And backwards. And arms down. Great job. Make sure that you take time to see how are you feeling. Take a check-in whether or not you need to take a break, hydrate with some water, or continue going. You can pause this video at any time. Our next warm-up exercise is going to be high knees. And for this exercise, you will hold your hands out in front of you and touch your knee to your hand for each repetition. If you are unsteady or you need a little bit of support, you can use a wall next to you or you can use a chair. For this exercise, we will do 20 repetitions. Let's go ahead and get started.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20.
Great job. Our next exercise is going to be side stretches. And for this exercise, we are going to stretch to one side. We're going to do that 5 times and hold each repetition for 5 seconds and then do it again on the opposite side. So we're going to start going this direction first. Let's get started. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Opposite side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Very good. Now that we're finished with our warm-up, we're going to move into our exercise pieces. Our first exercise is going to be the good old sit-up. So we're going to sit on the floor with your feet flat on the floor. And if you need anything to hold your feet down, or if you're working out with someone, you can enlist their help to kind of hold your feet down. And we're going to go ahead and do 3 sets of 10 sit-ups for this exercise. You're going to place your hands behind the bottom of your head, and when you sit up, you're going to push your chin straight up to the ceiling. That way you get really good form. So let's go ahead and get started. All right. Our next exercise is going to be the bicycle. For this, we have the similar position as the sit-up, but we're going to lay flat on our back with our feet at a 90-degree angle as we move our legs as if we are riding a bicycle. We're going to do 2 sets of 30 seconds for these. Let's go ahead and get started. Our next exercise is the plank exercise. This exercise is really going to help with your core muscle and core muscle control. For this exercise, you are going to be on your stomach. You are going to have your elbows nice in front of you, and you're also going to have your feet on your toes behind you. We're going to push up in the plank position and hold this position for 15 seconds, and we will do this 2 times. Let's go ahead and get started. Our next exercise is going to be the bridge, or what we call hip extension. And for this exercise, you will be seated on the ground with your feet flat on the floor. Our backs are also going to be flat on the floor, and we're going to lift our hips up to the ceiling. For this exercise, we're going to do 3 sets and hold them for 10 seconds each. Let's get started. Place your hands flat on the floor and place your feet about hip width apart. And when you're ready, we'll go ahead and lift straight up. So for our next exercise, we are going to do tricep extension. So you'll see that we do have weights here, but I want you to know that this exercise can be done without weights. You can use anything that you have at your home, such as a coffee mug or a can or anything that you have to just give a little bit of weight. And if you don't want to use weight at all, or if you have any kind of restrictions to this, you don't have to use weights, but we are going to use them for the purpose of this video. So with this, what we're going to do is hold this weight in our hands. We're going to place our arms back behind our heads with our elbows pointing straight up to the air, and then we are going to extend. We're going to do this 10 times, and we're going to do it for 3 sets. So let's get started. Our next exercise is going to be the bicep curl. Again, we do have our weights here, but the bicep curl can be done or modified with a can or a coffee mug or anything that you have at your home to give you a little bit of extra weight. This exercise can also be done without any weight at all by simply just moving your arms to get that mobility in your joints. Now, we will be demonstrating single bicep curls, but you can also do a double bicep curl where you hold your can or your weight in your hand and you simply move up and down like this. So there are many ways to modify this exercise but still get the benefit. We are going to do 10 curls on each arm. We're going to start with our right arm first and then move to our left arm. So let's go ahead and get started. Awesome. Switch arms. Very good. Our next exercise is going to be the jumping jack. We're going to do 3 sets of 10. Let's go ahead and get started. Ready? Go. Now it's time to cool down, and this is a very important part of any exercise as it helps your body recover from the exercises that we did previously or in any workout that you participate in. So now we're going to start with the abdominal stretch. For this stretch, you are going to have your hands flat on the floor, your elbows about shoulder width apart, and we're going to push up to stretch our abdominal cavity. And what we're going to do is stretch for about 10 seconds and do this 3 times. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay? Now. And again. Our next cool down stretch is going to be the sit and reach. So for this, you're going to sit on the floor with your feet straight out in front of you and try to pull your feet back to your knees so they're kind of at a 90-degree angle or a little bit more, so you feel that stretch right in the back of your legs. We're then going to reach to touch our toes, and we're going to hold this stretch for 10 seconds, and we're going to do it 3 times. Ready? And relax. And again. And relax. And again. And relax. For our final cool down activity, we're going to breathe in for a count of 8 and breathe out for a count of 8. For this activity, you will sit on the floor, and if you can, cross your legs or just in any kind of comfortable position that suits you. We are going to breathe in and we're going to raise our arms above our head, and then we will count to 8, and then we will breathe out and bring our arms down for another count of 8, and we'll repeat this 3 times. Let's go ahead and get started. Go. Breathe in. And breathe out. Breathe in. And breathe out. Breathe in. And breathe out. Awesome job completing this workout with Knockout Diabetes. As always, we want you to
be well,
stay healthy,
and stay the course as we
knock out diabetes.
Happy day. I'm Dr. Paula Newsome.
And I'm registered nurse Tracy Young.
And together we're the educational faculty for Knockout Diabetes, where K stands for knowledge, N stands for nutrition, O stands for ocular health, and C stands for coaching. And today we're going to talk about strategies for you to use food as a fuel.
Absolutely.
Because we want you to stop thinking about food as an emotional or a societal occurrence. So we want to help as we segue from food taking on new meaning.
Absolutely.
So actually, when you start thinking about a healthy meal plan, it actually begins in the grocery store. And when you go to the grocery store, there's just some things that you really should do. The first is never go to the grocery store hungry. I have done that numerous times, and I have wound up spending hundreds of dollars because I did not go in with a list and I did not go in after I eat. So I'd like to encourage you to go in after you've had a meal or after you have had a snack, but do not go in hungry.
Absolutely. And another tip is to buy in bulk. If you have some items that you're able to buy in bulk that'll last you a little bit longer, that will help decrease kind of the daunting task of going to the grocery store many times.
You mean having to make an emergency run?
That's right. And it also save you money.
Absolutely. So buy store brands. Oftentimes when you buy store brands, you're buying from the same conveyor belt, but just different packaging, different labeling when it's on that conveyor belt. So make sure store brands are typically okay. And if you read the food labels, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
And in many cases, the store brands sometimes may have the better food label on them. So make sure you read that food label.
And make a list.
Oh, so important.
Make sure you make a list. So just like you're going in with intention, you're not going in hungry. You also want to have a list so you're not just saying, oh, maybe I need this. Maybe I'll take a couple of those. You know, really make a list and be intentional about what you're putting in that basket.
So we keep saying intentional, but we've also said be mindful when you eat. So the whole thing about food is not to just take for granted that it's just something that you do. We want to make sure that it's an occurrence, that it is a special event, and that you are constantly thinking about it as you are participating in it.
Absolutely. And so when you're going to the grocery store, you want to make sure to try to shop the perimeter of your grocery store. This is really important because most of the fresh foods are going to be on the outside. And as you get more inside of the grocery store aisles, you're going to see more boxed and processed foods.
Absolutely. Now, the only problem, though, is that when you are buying and shopping from the perimeter, sometimes you have a problem with the food staying fresh. So you may not be able to keep them fresh as long.
Right.
And so you may want to taper down the amount of fresh fruits and vegetables that you eat.
Right.
But also keep a running list of foods that you need to replace in your home. So we always like to have avocado oil or grapeseed oil or one of the good oils that we can cook with.
Right.
And so we always keep a running list of items that we are depleting as we're depleting them.
Absolutely.
And that we need to replace.
Yes, that's a very good tip. Another thing is to, we're talking about the generic brands, reading the food labels. It's so important because a lot of times we look at the propaganda or the labeling that's on the bag or the can, and it can be very distracting because it'll say heart healthy or low calories, low cholesterol, reduced sodium. But when it's reduced in sodium or reduced in one item, typically you see an increase somewhere else. So you want to be very mindful of that and make sure that you read those food labels.
So as you're reading a food label, we want you to be mindful that the government made a change in the way that food labels appear, and they did that about 2 or 3 years ago. And so at the very top, you'll see on the back of any food item something that says nutrition facts. And then underneath that, it'll say serving size. And you'd be surprised. Sometimes you think that something is there and it can have 4 servings when it's actually 8 servings for the package. So you want to make sure that you check that. And you also want to check to see how many servings per container, because that's really, really important.
Yes.
When you start eating things like chips and when you start eating
popcorn.
Yeah, popcorn, all of that, you think you can eat the whole bag at one serving.
That's not a serving size.
That is not a serving size. And so you want to check to find out, because what follows on the label actually matches the number of serving sizes that are in the bag.
Correct. So that serving size may be 1 cup or 5 crackers or something like that. So looking at the serving size and knowing that, okay, well, in these 5 crackers, this is the amount of carbs or sodium that I'm going to get.
That's really, really, really important. Or this is the amount of calories that I'm going to get. And so you want to make sure that you obey calories with the amount of serving, because remember, we are, for this intents purposes, talking about making sure that we take in 1,200 to 1,800 calories per day.
Yes.
The average serving or the average daily caloric intake is in excess of 2,300 calories per day.
Yes.
Most of us eat way more than that. And I have to tell the story about me eating a plant-based burger. And I thought I was doing something because it was 20 grams of protein, and I love the protein. And we'll talk about why you should love protein as well. However, I did not realize it was 440 grams of sodium. So every time I was eating this plant-based burger, and that didn't include 2 slices of bread, I was eating almost 600, 700 micrograms of sodium. And I did that twice a day. And you're only supposed to eat 2,400 micrograms of sodium. So half of my sodium production was in 2 burgers that I was eating between breakfast
and lunch. Yeah.
And that didn't include dinner or anything else that I ate during the course of a day.
Absolutely.
So it was so funny. The joke was on me when I found out. And that's when I started being super careful about reading food labels.
Yes.
Food labels can be so deceptive, because when you see the front of the label and it says plant-based and it says keto approved and all this other stuff, you say, okay, well, I've got to be doing the right thing. Yeah, and it is just not necessarily healthy for you.
Very true.
So you have to read the labels.
Absolutely. And, also I do want to just touch back again on the generic brands or the store brands versus some of our big labels, because that is one of the biggest takeaways that I learned when I started reading my food labels. I pretty much buy mostly store brands or generic brands because I find that they truly do have the better nutritional value, and they're just better, and you get a better price, and so it's definitely something to be mindful of.
Awesome. And then the next thing that appears on a food label is the percent daily value. And this is the percent of your macronutrients and micronutrients of a 2,000 calorie meal.
Correct.
And so keep in mind that when you're looking at a label, you're looking at percent of daily value, and it's based on a 2,000 calorie per day diet. And I hate to use the word diet, but let's just say meal plan. And if you're really trying to lose weight, you really want to be at 1,200 to 1,500 to 1,800 grams of calories per day. So there is a difference in what you should be intaking versus what's on the label.
Absolutely.
So I just want you to be aware of that.
Yeah. Another thing we want to take a look at is the percentage of total fat on this label. And not only just the percentage of total fat, but the difference between how many saturated fat and unsaturated fat, because again, those unsaturated fats are the things that are going to lead to buildup in our arteries and cholesterol. Those are the fats that are solid at room temperature.
So it's really on the label now, it is the percentage of total fat versus the percentage of saturated fat versus the percentage of trans fat.
And trans fat is going to typically be 0. It's not something that we can purchase in the stores anymore, so you will see 0 there, but you do still want to look at that and make sure that there are no trans fat in what you are buying.
So what's happening at a lot of commercial kitchens, especially in cakes, pies, cookies, donuts, muffins, any kind of dessert, they're using trans fats, but they're using it in a way so they don't have to report it on labels. So just be aware that there are still trans fats being sold in the United States, and they're not helpful for you. So a good rule of thumb is to try to stay away from most processed desserts. In terms of saturated fat, you want to keep that at a minimum. Most saturated fats are not good. You want to stick with your mono saturated fats if you must. Poly would be next, but you really want to do your monos. Those are the olive oil, the grapeseed oil, flaxseed oil, sesame, light and dark, and avocado. So also on the food label, you'll see cholesterol and the amount of cholesterol that's there. And I see patients every day who are on tons and tons of cholesterol drugs, and they are doing that because they have way too much cholesterol. One of the big offending agents are red meats. A lot of cholesterol in red meat. So you want to be really careful about your intake of cholesterol. And then sodium. We've talked about the magic number. I like 2,300, 2,400 is industry standard. But you want to make sure if you want to lower your blood pressure and not get on blood pressure medication, 2,300 micrograms a day is a good number to keep in mind. You want to take in less.
Absolutely. The other items on the food label we want to look at are the total carbohydrates, so how many carbs. And this is especially important for people with diabetes because this is what's going to really influence your blood glucose numbers. So we want to look at that. And remember, we're only getting about 45 grams at each meal and 15 grams for each snack. So want to really take a look at that portion size.
And fiber is the one thing, dietary fiber, and I'm so glad they added this to the label because dietary fiber is the one food component that is so critical in terms of keeping us healthy. We want to take in food, but we also want to eliminate. And fiber is the part of our diet that makes us eliminate. So it is so very important. And a good rule of thumb on fiber is 25 grams of fiber a day. The average American takes in 2 to 4 grams of fiber, which means that most of us are walking around constipated most of the time.
Yes.
And then sugars. And that could be added sugars, natural sugars, man-made sugars. So
right.
You want to be clear about the sugar content.
That's right.
Because under carbohydrates, you will see fiber and you'll also see sugar. And it's kind of like the good and the bad.
Right. So when you're reading that food label and you see sugars on there, the next kind of step to that is looking at the ingredients, and that will tell you, it may tell you what type of sugar is in that product. So also total protein. So total protein is a percentage that you want to look at. Protein is very good for us, and we will talk more about proteins and how they affect our body and why we need them. So we want to take a look at how much protein are we getting and also look at some other sources.
And there's a black line, and after that black line, you'll get all the micronutrients.
Right.
So you have your macronutrients, which are your carbohydrates, your fats, your protein. Some people put water as a macronutrient. And then you have your micronutrient. Those are your minerals and your vitamins. And so in the example that you'll see in your packets, you're going to see micronutrients of vitamin A and vitamin C. You may also see micronutrients like calcium and iron and or zinc. And so, again, the percentage daily values just reflects 2,000 calories. So we're going to go through each of the carbohydrates, each of the food groups, macronutrients, and just kind of talk about what they do.
Okay, absolutely. So we'll just start with the big one, carbohydrates.
Yes.
So your carbohydrates can be split into simple and complex. And so we do know that carbs, these are the ones that are going to break down in our body as glucose or sugar. So we're looking at, good versus bad. We can kind of group in like our pizzas, our pastas, our fried potatoes as some of those bad carbohydrates, or some of the simple ones like simple sugars or processed foods. Whereas our complex carbs or our good carbohydrates are going to be like our vegetables and our fruits, things that are a little bit more natural, that our body is going to break down into that fuel that we need.
But just remember that carbohydrates in general give us energy. And so carbs are feel-good foods. So you want to make sure that when you're consuming carbs, you're doing more complex carbs than you are simple carbs. If it's real easy for your body to convert from eating it to a sugar, that's not a good carbohydrate.
Absolutely.
So some simple carbs also include rice and pasta and grits. Some complex carbs are lentils, legumes, beans, sweet potatoes,
Our fruits, popcorn, quinoa, other grains, and oats as well.
Good. And then there is our fave processed sugar. 4 grams of sugar are in 1 teaspoon. And in the U.S., we typically consume roughly 120 grams of sugar per day. So 30 teaspoons of sugar per day. There are 4 calories per 1 gram of sugar. So we are taking in roughly 480 calories per day from white sugar, which is 25% of our daily caloric intake. If we're just using a 2,000 calorie intake day.
Exactly.
If we're trying to lose, we've got to lose at least 500 of those calories.
That's right.
So,
and there it is, right there in your sugar.
yeah, so if we could just get people to reduce this by 1, if we could just reduce our sugar down to 6 tablespoons, we would do so much better.
Yeah, huge benefit.
And people, this is another myth. It's really very frustrating for me because everybody says, oh, I use artificial sweetener.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Oh my God.
That's a big one.
Do you want to share?
Well, so an artificial sugar, basically what happens with this, it means that it is something that our body, it's foreign to our bodies. It's not a natural source of sugar. So your sucrose metabolism actually increases fructose in the liver. And fructose is going to make that first pass through your liver, and it gives a rise to fatty liver disease. So when you're looking at some of these artificial sugars or these artificial sweeteners, they are not necessarily better for you. We still need to reduce our intake in just a natural sugar that your body will be able to process.
Artificial sugars promote inflammation, they promote oxidative stress, and also hyperglycemia. They don't promote satiety. Satiety is another word for it doesn't fill you up. So even after you eat the artificial sugars, you're still hungry, which means you're still going to eat.
Right.
And so that is really not good. And then you've also got sucrose and high fructose corn syrup, which you find in a lot of alcoholic beverages in addition to sodas.
Absolutely. And I do just want to make one note about satiety and how our brain and our stomachs work together.
Exactly.
And a lot of times when we're feeling hungry, you're really just thirsty. And so if you drink some water, get some good fluid in your body, a lot of times that will also kind of shut off that sensor in your brain that's saying, feed me, feed me.
Right.
We're just dehydrated. And so that's another good point to when we're taking in these sugars that are saying, we're not full, we're not satisfied. Try to drink some water.
Actually, 70% of people in the United States are dehydrated. They're
Yes.
walking around dehydrated. So that's a good point. Great point. And then there is a campaign afoot now called The Joy of Six, where if we could get every American to reduce their sugar intake to 6 teaspoons of sugar a day, that would decrease chronic disease in the United States. So don't forget the rule of 6, 6 teaspoons of sugar a day.
Absolutely.
And actually, I get sugar from bread and other sources. But I've quit adding sugar to almost everything I eat or cook. I drink green tea every day, and I've learned how to drink it with just lemon and different flavors of green tea, like the blueberry green tea.
Exactly.
So this is another example of where you could put cinnamon in the green tea if you've got to have that sugary kind of taste. Yeah.
Absolutely. So as we continue on with the food groups, we've covered carbohydrates, and now we're going to move on to fats. And fats also do provide the body with some energy, and it can help with some healing in the body as well. But we do want to make sure that we are being very mindful of the type of fats we're ingesting.
You can get fats from dairy products, red meats, poultry, and fish. Fish should be wild caught and not farm raised.
Absolutely. The next food group for a macronutrient is proteins. And so proteins really help your body grow. This is going to help with your muscles. It helps your body repair itself. It's what we need for energy as well in our bodies. It helps with our mood and a lot of our brain functions.
Absolutely. And again, you get protein from dairy products, red meats, poultry and fish, eggs, beans, lentils, and legumes. And again, fish should be wild caught, not farm raised.
Yeah, and another good source of protein, a lot of times we do ingest those red meats, but we do want to be mindful of the cholesterol intake on the red meat. And so substituting with beans or lentils or legumes is a good way to get your protein in.
Absolutely. Fiber. I call fiber the new F word.
I love it.
Because if you get 25 grams of fiber a day, the likelihood of your having chronic disease in your health history, is going to go down incrementally. And there are 2 types of fiber. There's soluble fiber, and then there's insoluble fiber. With the soluble fiber lowers blood sugar, and it also lowers cholesterol. So there you go. There's a way to get off of your hyperglycemic medications along with your hypercholesterolemia medications.
Right.
And then the insoluble helps with stool regularity. As we talked about, there are a lot of people in the United States that are really full
They're backed
and need to go.
That's right. Get that fiber in.
So when you're going to the grocery store, you want to make sure that you look for foods that meet specific purposes. And fiber, I have a ton of people who say, well, I don't want to call a brand name, but there's a brand name that everybody says, well, isn't this drug that ends with a "sil" on the end, isn't that helpful? And I say, but it's so much better to eat your foods as opposed to taking your, it's just better. Fiber helps with digestion and elimination, and some high fiber foods include split peas, lentils, avocado again, it's also a fat, artichoke,
peas, blackberries, raspberries, coconut.
Pears are another good one, and remember I said that my P in Paula stood for pear. And then there's also broccoli, that cruciferous vegetable that's really good. It's also anti-carcinogenic.
And then we also have Brussels sprouts and oats, and those are all good high fiber foods.
Awesome. And then there are also minerals. So you've got iron, which is really good for anemia and good for the blood system.
Absolutely. We also have calcium, which is really good for your strong bones, your teeth. So that's a mineral you want to make sure you're consuming.
Magnesium is good for your nerves. I am a good Epsom salt soaker. Like, give me an Epsom salt bath. Oh, my God. So wonder you guys don't hear me snoring through the screen, because that Epsom salt does the trick. That magnesium just kind of calms and relaxes me.
That's right.
But minerals are in a lot of foods, but especially in fresh fruits and vegetables.
Absolutely. So our next micronutrient behind our minerals are going to be our vitamins. And so we also need vitamins for good, strong bones, for strong teeth. And there are a lot of vitamin-rich foods, and we can find those in your fruits and your vegetables.
Right. And vitamins are also good for skin and hair. I know hair seems to be a really hot discussion these days, but remember, you can't have good, healthy hair unless you ingest a good diet. So it's all related. We want you to plan your foods. We want you to use a template, if you need one, for a food journal for meal planning. And don't hesitate to contact us with any questions. Know that this is a change in your life and that you can empower yourself. And it's a change that's going to take you to new heights. And you are going to just have to fasten your seatbelt and get ready for this new journey. We want you to make sure you start incorporating meal planning. You're more apt to track your calories, your carbs, your fat, and your sodium. You're going to eat better. You're going to eat less expensively, and it's better for your overall health.
Absolutely.
Mind, body, and spirit. So we know that you are going to monitor your vision daily.
You're going to check your feet daily.
You're going to monitor your food intake daily.
And monitor your blood glucose daily.
You're going to keep up with all your program materials.
And make sure that you journal whenever you're feeling in control or out of control.
And you're going to be open to change behavior. And you're going to do at least 150 minutes of physical activity or exercise per week.
And if you miss any of these classes or modules, make sure to go back and watch them, because we want to achieve at least 80% of this material.
And we want you to fully participate in Knockout Diabetes activities, because we want you to be well,
stay healthy,
and we want you to stay the course as we
knock out diabetes.